Hello everybody and congratulations for the launch of this Digital Innovation Hub on Livestock, Environment, Agriculture and Forest. No me puedo imaginar un mejor líder para un centro digital dedicado a estos sectores que la Universidad de Burgos. Esta provincia y la comunidad de Castilla y León tienen una fama mundial por sus productos de la tierra y por su naturaleza privilegiada. También es cierto que estos territorios afrontan desafíos como la despoblación o el envejecimiento de la población y es necesario que tomemos medidas para combatirlos. La digitalización y la innovación tecnológica son ambas herramientas esenciales para responder a los retos de este sector productivo y de regiones como la vuestra. La eficiencia y la competitividad que ofrece la innovación son claves para que el crecimiento sea sostenible y ofrezca oportunidades para responder al reto demográfico. Estoy convencido de que este centro de innovación digital supondrá un impulso en esa dirección y será pronto un referente especializado para todas las empresas de este sector productivo. Les deseo todo el éxito.
Las explotaciones ganaderas, ovinas y caprinas han incorporado las nuevas tecnologías a sus actividades diarias de manejo. La automatización de los sistemas de alimentación permite dosificar la ración de cada grupo de animales en función de su edad y peso. Del mismo modo, los carros mezcladores Unifit permiten mezclar diariamente los nutrientes para elaborar la ración de los animales de acuerdo a su estado de producción de leche, de gestación, etc. Esto facilita la administración del alimento a gran número de animales. La fase de ordeño también se ha incorporado a las nuevas tecnologías. Las salas de ordeño incorporan a la entrada de los animales dispositivos de lectura dinámica, que identifican a cada oveja a su entrada y le asigna un puesto de ordeño. Cuando se ordeña el animal, se asigna a cada uno la producción lechera obtenida. Además, se dispone de sistema de retirada automática de pezoneras, gracias a los sensores que detectan el fin del flujo de leche. La producción se registra digitalmente y se integra en el programa de gestión que permite al ganadero la toma de decisiones para la mejora de la producción. El ganadero incorpora a su programa de gestión todos los datos de paternidades obtenidas por test de ADN, así como los datos de producciones lecheras. Esto permite seleccionar los mejores animales en función de su valor genético, y así las ganaderías consiguen mejorar sus producciones. De acuerdo a la normativa europea, el animal se identifica con un chip electrónico que se introduce en su rumen y garantiza la trazabilidad de dichas producciones, ya sea leche, carne o lana. El control lechero oficial toma una muestra de leche de cada animal durante el ordeño, la cual se identifica con un código de barras, y esa información llega al laboratorio, asignándose a cada animal los datos de calidad de su leche. Esta información se incorpora al programa de mejora genética y es también garantía de la calidad de los productos que llegan al consumidor. El Centro de Selección y Mejora Genética OVIGEN, mediante la inseminación artificial, difunde la mejor genética entre las ganaderías, que consiguen así mejorar sus producciones. El ganadero recibe toda la información en formato digital, la cual, una vez integrada, le permite seleccionar los mejores animales como futuros reproductores. Los laboratorios garantizan con sus analíticas la fiabilidad de los datos, tanto del análisis de la leche como del análisis de paternidades mediante pruebas de ADN. Los programas informáticos de gestión de las ganaderías permiten el manejo de un rebaño de alto valor genético, más eficiente, sostenible y con las mayores garantías sanitarias para el consumidor.
Pues esto es lo que hemos diseñado, la prensa esta, que esta la diseñó un chico que se llama Javier Elena, un amigo mío. Fue el que inventó esta prensa, que el cual está haciendo ahora otra más potente. Y esto es lo que nos vale como recurso para sacar la materia prima a nivel internacional, puesto que cuando hay muchísima oferta de esta materia prima y hay poca demanda, no sabemos casi qué hacer con ello. Y como hay zonas en otras partes del mundo donde sí que demandan esta mercancía, esta materia prima, pues lo que hacemos es, la única vía es prensarlo para que los contenedores o los camiones vayan con los kilos máximos para poder ser competitivos y estar dentro de un mercado internacional. Cuando almacenamos estos volúmenes de paja, lleva muchísimos costes, Y en un año, por ejemplo, como el año pasado, como se presenta este año, con muchísimo excedente de paja, pues no se consume aquí a nivel nacional, porque las dehesas, las praderas, vienen con una buena otoñada, con una buena primavera, y se consume poca materia prima seca como la paja, ¿vale? Entonces la única vía de poder sacar esta materia es comercializándolo en otros países. Le aportamos que en algunos países no habría otro modo de poder obtener esta materia prima si no es llevando estas toneladas, porque eso sería casi el doble de caro y sería inviable para cualquier tipo de ganadero, esté donde esté. Lo que se hace también es hacer que ese ganadero que esté a lo mejor a 3.000, 4.000, 5.000 kilómetros de aquí pueda tener esta materia prima. La prensa lo que hace es, las pacas que tienen 2,50 metros de largo, lo que hace es reducirlas, las comprime hasta que las deja en el 50% del volumen, sacando el aire que tiene interiormente. Con la misma cuerda que ya tenía la paca, se vuelve a dejar otra vez atado, y no hace falta poner alambres, no hace falta poner flejes. Por ejemplo, el alambre en algunos sitios ya están medio prohibiéndolo o no lo quieren, y es una vía de escape para no tener problemas para comercializarlo. Al compresarlo al 50%, por ejemplo, en un container, en vez de meter, por ejemplo, 30 unidades, así sin haberlo comprimido, se puede meter 55 o 60. Ya estamos casi doblando o doblando los kilos, ya es viable para poderlo transportar.
Hi everyone, so welcome to this panel session on precision livestock farming, what we call PLF. I'm Jean-Marc, I work for the French Livestock Institute as team leader on sensors, equipment and facilities. My team is composed of 11 engineers. Half of them are working on PLF and the others on barn design. So what we do, we set and test different promising innovative technologies and participate to the transfer of them to stakeholders. So for this, we are active in several national and EU projects. And if you want, I can detail this later on. So in this panel session, we will have 4 speakers with very interesting approach on PLF. All of them will present their approach in maximum 7-10 minutes, and then we should have time for questions. So don't hesitate to put them and to push them on the chat. We will start right now with Matti Pastell. So Matti is an associated professor of future farming technologies at Natural Resource Institute Finland, called Luke, I think so. He's working on measuring, modeling, and control of dynamic biological systems and agricultural automations. He's mostly worked with application in dairy and pig production. Currently, his main research topic is assessing the welfare of individual animals from census data. He is also currently the president of the EAP Commission on Precision Livestock Farming. Matti, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Jean-Marc, and many thanks for being invited to this event. It's very interesting to see these digital innovation hubs opening for agriculture and for me personally, specifically for livestock. So I will share my presentation once I manage to do it. Okay, so I will briefly introduce our research group at Luque. So we have a group of 8 people at the moment, or this is a little bit varying because we have people working from different areas in Luque in the same projects. But in the core group, you can see a little part of the participants. So we are meeting in remote working mode, as I imagine most other people are. So we are working on different topics around precision livestock farming, from sensor development. You can see some of the pictures from our projects using development of spectrometer technology together with the State Technical Research Institute. And then we have some embedded system development in the accelerometer, low power sensors. And then we are also working with the data from commercial systems in dairy cow monitoring. And now more and more we are moving into from using wearable sensors to monitoring animal welfare towards using computer vision, because there's a lot of opportunities in that area. And I think I will comment a little bit on that in the end. So I think we are quite familiar, let's say, with the range of technologies, and then also the application of sensor data and expertise on how to assess animal welfare, and also looking into the economics of the systems and how the farmer can make something.
Sorry, Matti. I think you're not showing the right. I think you were looking at a different screen.
Do you see the research? Okay, research group at Luque now. Okay, yeah. So apologies. So this was the. So again, you can see the research group, so people in the group. You can see some of the sensors, so from embedded systems to computer vision projects. And maybe you remember just what I said before. This is always the problem with the online seminars, that you can never be fully sure that the technology is working. And do you now see the slide related to the Clear Farm project? So the Clear Farm is one of our main research projects. I will briefly introduce it. So it's about developing a system for monitoring animal welfare based on sensor data. And the main aim is to co-design this platform. So we have started the project about a year and a half ago. And last year we had to cancel a lot of the events that he had planned to do in person, but to conduct interviews with the consumers and stakeholders and with the research group to come up with the concept on how animal welfare should be monitored and what are the important parameters. And we conducted a review on commercial sensors. So our aim here is to develop something that would be useful for the farms with existing commercial technologies, and we chose to focus on the use of validated sensor technologies. So we are conducting experiments in pigs and dairy cattle, where we are monitoring the welfare of the animals using expert scoring that's modified based on from the welfare quality protocol in the cattle case, where we are working at Luque. And then we are also collecting data in Spain and Italy and Finland for the dairy cow pilot. So we are covering a range of farms, going there, doing welfare monitoring, measuring the behavior of the animals using wearable sensors and data from milking robots, and combining that and trying to develop a welfare index. And then going further, having a platform where the information can be communicated to the consumers. Further, we are also working on the business models to see how the income could be fairly distributed, so that also the farmer has incentive for improving the animal welfare and using the platform. And one of the recent results from the projects is what we did a review on the available sensor technologies for welfare assessment of dairy cattle. We have also done another one on sensors for pigs, and our focus especially has been on the validation level of sensors. And so talking a little about what we see as opportunities and needs for future research, and particularly arising from the Clear Farm projects, we see that the validation of the technologies is quite important. So it's interesting time to work in this field, and there are a lot of opportunities and new commercial sensors come to the market. And then, but in order to use that to, for instance, assess welfare and develop welfare labels where would even affect the income of the farmers, it's very important that we know exactly how the technologies work, what's the validity of the measures, because in any system you have some inaccuracy. We should be able to quantify how reliable the technologies are, and this is not so much of a technological research topic, but maybe requiring expertise from many different sciences that understand the technology, but then also how the farmers would use the technology, and then how the welfare is assessed. And I think this is something we need in the future, more and more kind of a system how to validate, and I think important also for the communication to the consumers. And I think the digital innovation hubs are a very good initiative, and that can probably help a lot here, that the companies and the researchers can work together. Artificial intelligence provides us a lot of opportunities also in the livestock sector. In our research group, we are especially interested in the use of computer vision. So we see that especially for welfare assessment in the current commercial technologies, we are not able to assess appropriate behavior of animals as well as we would like to. So computer vision is an opportunity to do direct observation and also to assess the interactions between animals, and the development in the general deep learning research has been very fast lately, and that brings us a lot of new opportunities and a lot of research groups. Maybe Tomas Norton will also comment on it, I hope. Another thing is the access to data. A lot of discussion on the commercial access and a lot of good initiatives how to make the interoperability of different systems. What we are maybe not talking so much is on the scientific side, and I think in order to push the modeling further, we need to establish better benchmark data sets. We need to be more open in sharing the research data, and really measuring the same thing in different conditions across Europe, having a standardized measurements, for instance, of welfare, and then to share those data sets openly, so that we are able to compare the performance of the different algorithms. A lot of groups are working on development of new models for assessing welfare or detecting diseases. But at the moment, I think we are not, in most cases, able to objectively compare the performance of the model, because everybody is working on separate data sets. And I think it's getting more open, so it's interesting time to be working in this field. Thank you.
So we leave question for the end of the panel session. Let's move on to Tomas Norton. So Tomas is currently a nominated tenure track assistant professor in precision livestock farming. He is based in the division of animal and human and health engineering, the group of M3 Bureaus, as a KU Leuven, so in Belgium. His current research focus is centered on PLF technology, including modeling and control of animal bioresponses. So, Tomas.
Thank you, Jean-Marc, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure. I'd like to second what Matti said. It's great to see digital innovation hubs being developed with a focus on livestock production. It's a very interesting development. And I'm going to do, it's going to be quite fast, my quick overview on what I believe the role of PLF is in future-proofing animal production. And I'm going to, if I can move forward. Yeah, I'm going to start with a paper that was published back in 2015. And this publication stated that the Earth is nothing more than a battery. And this battery has been trickle charged for many millions of years by decaying plants and animals. And the problem now is that we're discharging this battery through human activity, and it's going very, very fast. In fact, we see at the moment from the modeling the authors did that we have drained almost 99% of this battery. So there is big challenges, and this is an alarm bell moment. The authors put this down to the exponential increase in energy on a per capita level. And first, when I saw this, I thought this is a bit challenging, because when you look to the sector, I mean, not just agriculture, but many in society, different industries, you see that, yeah, when we develop technologies, we're always aiming towards improving the efficiency of the technologies. Like, for example, take the automotive industry. We started out with very gas-hungry, diesel-hungry engines. And now today, our engines are in no way related to those engines of the past. They're far more efficient. And then the question is, yeah, but is this high efficiency going to reduce our consumption of resources? And in fact, this statement is completely wrong. And it's been known to be wrong for a long time, in fact. There is this guy, Charles Javon, who did some research back in during the Industrial Revolution. And he came up with the idea that, yeah, when people have access to more efficient technology, because they have the capacity to use more resources, they will do that. So they will actually use more resources. And in other words, waste resources. And as a function of this wasting of resources, there is what are called rebound effects. And when it comes to energy use, a rebound effect is effectively the pollution of the environment. So emissions of CO2, right? But we can also think of the engine that we have in livestock production. And here I just give the example of broilers, because we see a remarkable evolution in the animal engine that is the broiler over the years. For example, the broiler that was growing in 1960 is far different to the broiler that's growing today. It's able to grow 5 times faster, by the way, and the feed conversion ratio is half of what it was in the past. So it's a serious engine, and it's a real breakthrough in genetic development, I think, to be honest with you, to have such an animal today. But the problem is, this, of course, has led to a lot of consumption, and there's a lot of rebound effects as a function of that. So we have rebound effects in terms of the use of antibiotics, in the effects on animal health and welfare, on the environment in terms of pollution, and also in terms of overconsumption. There is also problems when people eat too much of meat. And I hope that with the current farm to fork strategy in Europe, that actually we move towards more sustainability. I think it can be very interesting, but I really believe precision livestock farming has an important role to play there. And I think when it comes to livestock farming, there's 3 aspects that PLF can contribute to. There is the genetic improvement aspect. So that's extracting interesting information, phenotypic information that can be used by the breeders to improve their genetics. That's number 1. Number 2 is actually supporting the development of new farming systems, new sustainable farming systems to balance factors like welfare and emissions, which are always competing. And then also finally, the development of on-farm technology to support the farmer. And what can this do? This can help the farmer to reduce or eliminate the rebound effects of his system. And we can sum it all up, and we can then start to have a positive effect on the whole livestock sector. And that's why I think PLF has a very interesting role to play in the future. So our group is focused on dealing with these aspects of the rebound effect. And we deal with things like the health of the animal, the welfare of the animal. More recent times, we've been working on the welfare of the animal. And here is a project that we have running. It's funded by McDonald's. It's in collaboration with the Big Dutchman. And the idea is to enable farmers to quantify the state of welfare in large flocks of fast-growing broilers. Yeah, it's a very efficient system, but at the moment the welfare is not quantified. So we're helping to develop the tools with camera technology to try and enable that. We also have a running project with a consortium who are working together to try and develop an integrated pest management system for aviary housing. Aviary housing represents the next step in terms of evolution of layer hen housing. So we're going beyond cage systems to aviary systems. But the problem is these systems have issues. For instance, they get infested with pests like this blood mite, and it affects the health, welfare, and productivity of the birds. So we want to get there early and detect the growth of population of this mite and inform the farmer so he can treat with a sustainable treatment early. The next line of work is on the phenotyping work. We do a lot of work on the computer vision side, particularly to try and track the animals. And then after we can track the animals, we assess the interaction and try and determine the nature of the interaction. We had a lot of collaboration over the last few years with Maciej, who is here at the moment representing VETMEDUNI, with Michigan, and also recently started up a nice collaboration with the Pig Improvement Company, and with the intention that this kind of technology can in the future be integrated in genetic improvement and can lead to more sustainable genetics in the pig industry. So that's an exciting development. Finally, we have another project. We're coordinating this in the development of a decision support tool to enable farmers to detect early risk of tail biting outbreaks in pigs, which is an important issue given that now we're moving towards undocked tails in pig production. And then not only to give him a warning, but also give him some suggestions, advice, what should he do in particular situations. So it's not just acting as an early warning system. So that's our final project. So in terms of general conclusions, I believe that the PLF is not just about gadgets. It's more about, especially the research that our group is busy with, and Matti and Maciej. It's really about helping in terms of welfare and enabling sustainable livestock production. But of course, it needs a lot of intensive collaboration. None of these projects are possible without a lot of heavy collaboration, and it makes it fun at the same time. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Tomas. Very interesting indeed, again. Now let's move on to the next speaker. So María, Jesús, Serra, Varela from Spain. She's the head of the technical section in the area of digitalization from the General Subdirectorate of Innovation and Digitalization of the Spanish Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food. She works on the implementation of the Spanish digitalization strategy for the agri-food and forestry sector in the rural areas. Her presentation will explain this strategy and will detail its major focuses. So, María Jesús, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jean, for this presentation. As Jean has said, my name is María Jesús Serra, and I work in the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries and Food in Spain. And I want to start this presentation thanking the organizers for inviting us and letting us maintain this very interesting talk. As I see there's people from very different countries, I've decided to start giving you some context of the importance of the agri-food and forestry sectors in Spain. And I first want to highlight the great economic importance that these sectors have. In fact, 2 million jobs depend on these sectors, and they are responsible of 10% of the gross domestic product in Spain. I also want to highlight the high importance in the trade balance of 50,000 million euros. So we play a major role both in the global market and also in the European market. Until here, I let you know about the positive things, but of course we also have our limitations. One of them that is common to the entire Europe is that we are suffering the population in rural areas, those that are very important for the development of these activities in Spain. The second one is that we have very high masculinization indexes, And finally, that there's a very big digital gap between urban areas and rural areas, so that the possibilities for connection and other things are very different dependent on where you live. So we all know that innovation and information and communication technologies are key elements to fight against these limitations. They can revitalize rural economy on one hand, but they can also create new type of jobs that might make it interesting for young people to stay in rural areas. In addition, we are now in a COVID-19 framework where digital solutions are becoming essential to maintain any type of economical activity. So we have on one hand the importance of the agri-food sector and forestry sector in Spain, and on the other hand, the importance of digitalizing for any type of economic sector to maintain any type of economic activity. So we put them both together and we get to the digitalization strategy for the agri-food and forestry sector and rural areas that we have developed. We have fixed 3 different objectives for this strategy, and we implement them by action plans that we just finished our first one, and we are now starting the second. So now I will introduce you to the 3 objectives that we fixed for the digitalization strategy. The first one is to narrow the digital gap between rural areas and urban areas, but also between big enterprises and small enterprises. To tackle this digital gap, we have to focus on 2 lines. The first one is connectivity, so that independently of where one person or one enterprise may be, they have the same possibility to access to internet. The second line is training, so that we have to make sure that once one person is able to get this internet or digital technologies, he has or she has the specific skills to actually use it. The second objective of our strategy is to foster data use. We now have data coming from very different sources. We have Internet of Things, and we have very powerful computers to analyze this data. But we need to make sure that this data is interoperable. And this means that if independently of where this data come from, we can combine it and get this new added value from this data. And we also need to make sure that this is open data so that everyone can have access to it. They know what it is, they can actually download it and use it. And the third objective of our strategy is to boost business development and create new business models in this agri-food and forestry sectors. I want to focus here on the need to strengthen the digital innovation ecosystem. And by this, what we mean is that to make it easier for those that play a role in this ecosystem, such as enterprises or research centers, universities, or of course the producers, to come together and talk and find the best solutions for these kind of problems. In addition, we also want to make an effort in improving the advice that enterprises get in order to be able to implement these solutions into their enterprises. So until now, I explained the 3 objectives that our digitalization strategy have. And you can see here our first action plan that had just finished, in which we define 40 specific actions, each of them collaborating to one of the objectives I described. I would like to let you know about 2 of the actions we developed during these past 2 years, because they are related to what we are talking today. The first of one is that we did a compilation of all the digital innovation hubs related to the agri-food sector, both at a national and at a European scale. What we wanted to do is to know what we have so we can promote the dialogue between these digital innovation hubs, as we knew which one were fully working, which one were just created, or which one didn't succeed. We want to make sure that the efforts these digital innovation hubs make are in synergy and they work all together. The second action that I would like to highlight is that we created a precision farming working group. And for this, we put together national experts of this area, and we asked them to tell us about the contribution that precision farming could have in meeting the objectives of the future common agriculture policy. We got some conclusions from this working group. I would like to give you some flashes, like the importance of training and counseling to make sure that actually the enterprises could integrate technological solutions into their enterprises. Also the need for co-creative solutions, And with co-creative solutions, what we mean is that the user, the final user of the technology, has to be involved in the creation of this technology. And finally, that to make sure that all the enterprises, also the small ones, are able to integrate this technology, association is necessary so they are able to make the necessary investment in these technologies. So with this, I finish my talk. I thank you all for your attention. In case there are some questions we may not be able to deal with today because of lack of time, you have here our address, and you can write to us, and we will be very happy to answer. That's it.
Many thanks, María Jesús. Again, very interesting and inspiring presentation. Let's move on to our last speaker. So Maciej Oczak, sorry for the pronunciation. He's doctor. He has finished his PhD in biosense engineering with a specialization on precision livestock farming at Leuven University in Belgium. He was working for two companies specialized in PLF, Funcom and SmartBow, developing models for PLF tools. Currently holds the position of coordinator of precision livestock farming hub at VETMEDUNI, Vienna, sorry. Is interesting is computer vision application in pigs.
Yes, thank you, Mark, for the introduction. So I will try to share my screen. All right, so in my presentation, I will talk about research activities, teaching and research activities in the PLF field at the University of Veterinary Medicine in Vienna, Austria. So because of growing world population and rise of the middle class, mainly in Asia, the demand for animal products is expected to rise by 75% until 2050. Between 2005 and 2016, there was a 65% increase of number of animals per farm in EU. And this trend of livestock farming intensification will also continue in the future. That means that the farmer will have more animals to take care about, but less time to focus on each individual. And this creates new challenges for animal health. For example, with disastrous infections in groups of 200,000 fatteners or 25,000 cows. Also new challenges for the environment and also for animal welfare in some of the new systems of livestock production. And so it will be required more and more automation in order to cope with these new challenges and to guarantee the proper status of the animal. And precision livestock farming plays a central role in application of automation in livestock farming. So the definition of PLF that we use is this is a tool for management of livestock by continuous automated real-time monitoring of production, health and welfare of livestock, and environmental impact. Now, there are always steps that we follow in development of precision livestock farming technology. We always start from a definition of gold standard, then we proceed to defining the key indicators. After that, we decide on the equipment and experimental setup. Then we collect the data and label it. And then only after this step, we go to algorithm development and test those algorithms in the field and then implement them in commercial systems. So precision livestock farming is an interdisciplinary field, joining expertise in animal science and veterinary medicine with expertise in data science and engineering. And so our University of Veterinary Medicine is, of course, traditionally strong on the animal side. But with this new initiative of forming of precision livestock farming hub at our university, we aim to strengthen also the engineering expertise in the context of PLF, because we believe that bringing together engineers with veterinarians close to the animals is necessary to successfully develop new precision livestock farming tools. And so the foundational idea of Precision Livestock Farming Hub was to bring together scientists working at University of Veterinary Medicine at our university who are interested in this field of precision livestock farming and to do research on PLF. we mainly focus on precision dairy farming, precision pig farming, and on precision poultry farming. And so Precision Livestock Farming Hub collaborates with various research groups specializing in animal science and veterinary medicine at our university and also internationally. We focus on engineering in the PLF field and collaborate also with various industry partners that develop products in this field. And now shortly, I would like to explain the vision and mission of Precision Livestock Farming Hub, where the vision is the ultimate goal of what we would like to accomplish, and the mission means what do we do to accomplish this goal. So our vision is that we believe that rapid technological development and innovation in livestock husbandry offers the prospect of meeting future demands for food in a sustainable and welfare-friendly manner. Where by sustainable, we mean lower emissions and lower use of natural resources such as water or land. And with welfare-friendly, we indicate that technological development should improve animal welfare. Now, the mission of Precision Livestock Farming Hub is to address new risks for animal health, welfare, and production by development of real-time monitoring tools with science-to-solution approach. Now, shortly, I would like to explain three of the major areas of research at PLF Hub. The first one would be computer vision. So we believe that computer vision has multiple advantages that influences the wider adoption of camera sensor in PLF systems in the future. One is that it is a non-invasive way to monitor animals, and the whole body of the animal can be monitored. Multiple variables, so key indicators, can be monitored with a single camera. It's also the most comparable to how farmers, veterinarians, or other stakeholders observe their animals. And also there is a very good future perspective as more open data sets become available with millions of labeled images. And that will really accelerate further development of computer vision in the PLF field. Now, the second major area of research is solution-oriented research. So what we mean by that is that we don't only aim to develop algorithms with retrospective data sets, but actually we aim to implement those real-time algorithms in practice. We aim to develop prototypes and also dashboards. This allows to validate those prototypes, and also this allows to use those prototypes by farm staff. And also another consequence is that it allows to validate new treatment strategies which are based on precision livestock farming systems. And finally, the most futuristic area of research would be then to integrate the outputs from those different algorithms to provide a general overview of welfare, health, and production status of the animal. And now in my final slide, in the last slide, I just shortly would like to talk about teaching activities at our university. So on one hand, we integrate some elements of precision livestock farming within the general curriculum for veterinarians. We also teach a specialized course, digitalization in livestock farming, for fifth year students. But the most importantly, we introduce a new master program, digitalization in animal health, in the next year, which will be open for graduate students from, on one hand, from the field of veterinary medicine, agriculture, but on the other hand, also for students of life sciences, computer science, data science, and engineering. And so we will offer courses focused on animal science and veterinary medicine, but also on this other engineering side. And this is to, of course, to address this problem of lack of expertise in this interdisciplinary field of precision livestock farming. So thank you for your attention. That's it from me.
Thank you very much. Again, interesting. So now it's time for questions. Don't hesitate to push some questions on the chat. We already have some questions. So I will start with the first one from Carlos. We have seen with your different introduction and presentation that digitalization is mostly focused on intensive livestock farming. But what about the extensive one? Is digitalization a tool for them, or is only for extensive farming? So we want to answer to this question. Matti, maybe?
Yeah, so I can answer. I think there's a lot of opportunity in the extensive as well, but it will be quite different. Like we all highlighted the computer vision aspect, and I think this is kind of, most of the work has been done in indoor farming systems where you have a limited contained area, but also in the field of the wearable sensors, I think there is a lot of development that will enable the tracking of animals in extensive, and also for the environmental resource use. So I don't think it's only for the intensive in the future, but the research is more focused in that area. And I think in the extensive there is an opportunity for somebody who wants to develop that, and certainly I think the technology is now much readier than it was some years ago, as we have the new low power radio technologies like Sigfox and LoRa and some others. So in the future also for extensive, but the current commercials are certainly more focused on the intensive systems.
Thanks, Matti. And to follow up this idea, do we think that technology in precision livestock farming is only for huge flock, or can it target also smaller and medium, let's say, farmers? Maybe some.
Well, yeah. Well, if I can, let's say according to some classifications in Finland, we only have small farms because the average dairy is about 40 cows, and then very commonly you have one milking robot. And certainly if you consider that small and medium, they are very technology intensive. If you are talking about less than 10 animals or so, certainly I think you can still have technology. Whether it's then cost effective and whether you need it maybe is a different question.
Thanks, Matti. Tomas?
Yeah, can I add here? I think it depends on what your definition of technology is. Like, for instance, I spoke with a farmer who said, yeah, a lot of this PLF technology, I'm not so convinced, but I have a WhatsApp group set up with the guys that I'm working with, and it's the most useful piece of technology I have because I can manage the farm walks, I can manage what they're doing. And I think it raises a key point that the technology should enable better communication, transfer of knowledge faster. And when that happens, then things become both efficient and less damaging on the environment. I think you can manage what people are doing better. So I think everybody has access nowadays to these basic technologies. And I think once it can be more demonstrated, the return on the investment of more sophisticated devices on the animals and things, then it can potentially go into smaller farms. But just to also talk about a little bit about your point on the extensive systems, I think there the problem is standardization. Like for instance, if you look to intensive commercial systems, if a technology developer, and let's face it, we need business, we need private industry involved if we want to have an impact, and we want technology to make it in the market and make it into the hands of the farmers. It means they need to have an argument to commit to a system. And when you look to livestock production, the mainstream is in the intensive production, and it's well defined. You have variations, but it's more or less well defined. Then the risk is reduced for the private sector to get in. When you talk about the organic sector, there's so much variation in the different systems, is that it's a barrier to prevent people making the jump. And of course, then there's the discussion about, there's so much research being done and the companies are not taking it on. And I think we do the research, but we haven't de-risked the situation enough for them to believe that this technology, and coupled with this particular sustainable farming system, will make it so that their company will survive. And I think that's a challenge too. And it's about this standardization aspect.
So just to follow up, maybe Maciej, what just said Tomas about standardization, and I mean that by standardization that will help maybe to go with some extensive production. But you think that finally, artificial intelligence cannot be a tool to maybe go over standardization?
Yes, for sure. This artificial intelligence, the new technologies also help to develop more sophisticated algorithms that would work in different environments. What I would like to mention also is what is an exciting, I think, technology or application of computer vision in extensive systems. One example could be the application of drones. So actually, this is something that we start to do also here at the University of Veterinary Medicine, is to just at this moment play around with drones, so to try to monitor the cows in the pasture. And of course, there are many challenges there. So like the most important, I think, would be the battery life for the drones, so that it can keep, these drones can keep enough time in the air to actually use this monitoring technology efficiently. But I think that there will be just more and more possibilities in the future of application of also of computer vision, other sensor technologies for extensive systems.
Thank you.
Can I just react to your last point there, Mark?
Right,
so you said about AI and the capacity there. You know, I think at the moment, maybe there's a little bit too much confidence in AI at the moment. It's very black box. The current AI is very black box. It will work on systems very similar to what you train it on. And the problem is there is so much variation in a farming system. When you go outside, everything is growing, everything is in a dynamic state. So what you train is, it's not going to be exactly the type of data model is going to see when you apply it. And that can be a big challenge when it comes to artificial intelligence. I know maybe Matti and Maciej know more recent techniques. I know there's developments in transfer learning, continual learning, and I think all of these methods will contribute in the future. But for sure, it's still a developing field. So it's very difficult to say that this will be the silver bullet. I think we should fall back on what we know best, try and utilize the knowledge on statistics along with traditional ways of modeling, go back to linear regression, and really believe in the parameters that we are proposing so that we can actually defend the models we produce. And that's a problem. It's a little bit like, oh yeah, it's deep learning magic. Yeah, nobody can explain what is in these bloody, these high, the large amount of parameters in these things. Yeah, but that's the big challenge we face now. Maybe the two guys have some comments to that.
Yeah, thanks, Tomas. Maybe, yeah, if I think you are right. I agree about that. The artificial intelligence technologies are very data hungry, and well, in computer vision, I'm relatively confident you cannot beat the current algorithms with linear regression and in tracking of the animals. So that's one area where we can probably agree that deep learning is very successful. But I also have large doubts that how it will apply to welfare data, in that we are not just actually having enough data. And it's a little bit misleading that now you can develop a computer vision algorithm with some thousands of annotated images, because all of the models are pre-trained it using data sets of millions of annotated images. So if we had this behavioral data from millions of animals with the annotations, then maybe we could actually move a lot further with artificial intelligence. But still we have the problem that we are limited to the environment where it's developed. So I agree in the sense that we need both models, and it's not a silver bullet in saying that you get some data from an extensive system. I think for the extensive, it's actually very tricky to get enough of the data, and there you might get much better with some more traditional algorithms. But also in the extensive, you should need to solve some need for the farmers. So I come from a suckler farm, and all of the animals are mostly healthy. So you would have a hard time in convincing somebody to invest in disease detection technology for a suckler cow that's never sick. So you also need to have the need for the system.
So we can see that we face different issues when we speak about PLF. Have data coming from different situations, configurations, systems of production. María, Jesús, do you think that the Digital Innovation Hub can be maybe a tool in order to get information data and to involve maybe different systems in the approach of PLF? You're on mute.
I'm sure digital innovation hubs are an excellent tool for this. I mean, first problem we have in getting data, at least my personal opinion, is that people are normally afraid of giving their own data from their exploitations. So working in a common framework together where producers are included and also research centers gives a place first to detect where the real problems are, and second to make those producers more confident in sharing their data.
That's a big issue, data access and sharing. Things that you, Thomas, you mentioned this in your presentation, the open data. Matti, I don't remember which, both of you, maybe. You, Thomas, what do you think of it about such approach?
It was Matti that mentioned the data challenge.
So Matti, could you follow up this and say how we can deal this, maybe in research approach and also in the future? Because if we think about algorithm, we need to improve them in the future. So I mean, we need to have access regularly to data.
Yeah, so I think in the research, it's largely a cultural question on how the research groups in the field have operated. And I think the publishing is becoming more open, so more research groups are sharing the data. And then, well, on the commercial side, I think also then the companies need to see the benefit in combining the systems from different providers and certainly the farmers can see the benefit, but the problem is that there is also an extra cost in making the data available. So everybody should make a little bit. I think there are a number of good initiatives on the European level, and actually we are seeing that all the time more and more data is available. So I think we just need to continue working on it. And I think all of the research groups, if you are able to share the data with your paper, then you should just do it. So kind of have an honest evaluation whether there is a commercial potential or actually whether you have much more potential in making the data open and then combining with the data set of the research groups and having kind of a better system for modeling than for everyone.
Again, maybe Maciej, you mentioned gold standards as something very keystones when we speak about new technologies and precision livestock farming. Regarding welfare approach, what are your gold standards? You're on mute.
Sorry. So, of course, gold standard is absolutely fundamental for development of precision livestock farming technology. We see it very strongly, especially at our University of Veterinary Medicine. I would say that this is our biggest contribution to development of PLF. Really, development of those standards has to be based on fundamental knowledge on animal psychology, on animal ethology, and also fundamental knowledge on the health of the animal. This is very, very important. Here, of course, our scientists specialize in this. So this is really helpful for us in development of PLF, that we have all of this expertise, fundamental expertise on the animal side.
Matti, again, almost the same question, because you mentioned that a key element of your project ClearFarm is to validate some technologies, and this is very important to make sure that the technology we use are validated. So that means that you have also gold standards.
Yeah.
So how do you validate technology in your project?
So in the ClearFarm project, we put quite a lot of effort on deciding, and of course it's not very easy, because first you have to decide how to define welfare. And what we decided to do I will only speak for the dairy work package, because that's where we are involved and most familiar, and in the pigs they have a little bit different and not exactly the same approach. But we decided to go with the parameters from the welfare quality. So we are doing the welfare quality scoring with the respects that it fits to the individuals, and the reason there that even though there is some, well, we cannot say it's a perfect system, but it's quite well agreed, and we know that it produces consistent results. So we've been doing the welfare quality scoring and then also some additional veterinary follow-up. And then with together the experts in different countries, we are putting that into index and then using that as the golden standard. So I think especially for welfare, it's not one person that can make the decision. So it's much harder. It's like for the emissions, you can come up with a standard. How to calculate it, I think, a little bit more easily. For welfare, you have to weigh then the different aspects if you think the disease is more severe than the freedom of behavior, and that's what makes it kind of a well, if you can call it a golden standard, but you have to agree on a system and then use it. And I think we can still, like most of the current welfare scoring systems, I think quite useful that they are able to differentiate the animals. Then what's the absolute level? I think that's even more difficult discussion or question.
Anyway, your methodology that you are going to set during this project can be also an outcome for the other
yes. Well, we are planning to publish, and interesting to see then the reactions from other research groups.
We just have time for the last question. They told me. So for María, we have one question. I would tell it on the chat. Do you perceive an increasing interest coming from the new generation, the young people from the rural areas, or students accessing to agronomy and environment university degrees? So toward digitalization in relation in the livestock sector. By this, how do we maybe teach about this and maybe have more skills on PRF?
I think to get more, well, first to the first question, I don't have data to answer, but personally, I think that the people from the rural areas are actually getting formal education on digital competences, and then they're going back to the rural areas to actually apply it in their exploitations. And how to tackle the problem of training digital skills, I think we have to tackle it from two ways. First, to include it in all the formal education, independently of what it is, but especially in the agriculture and farming masters or grades. And second, also to give the chance to people that are in rural areas to have access to different type of courses or training possibilities actually located in their place where they live. So I think those are the two ways we have to improve the skills of these rural people in digital technologies.
Thank you, María. So we are going to the end of this panel session. I want to thank all the speakers.
Sorry, Jean-Marc, to interrupt. If you want to ask the last question, it's not problem. Maybe since it's been fruitful, it's not a problem.
Okay, so perfect. If we have time, still time for some questions. I got one also, and that's for Tomas. Tomas, you spoke about to have an efficiency technology, to have let's say a low impact with this technology on the environment, or anyway, in other words, to have a environmental friendly approach when we speak about precision livestock farming. Do you think that all technologies that we set and develop are environmentally friendly? Do we should have also this in mind when we speak about PRF?
I think, you see, it goes back to what you said earlier about the main concentration of effort being on intensive systems. And in intensive systems, the primary focus is to help the producer to be as efficient as possible. And that means then, while other factors could be measured, like welfare, like health, actually the main focus is on how fast are these animals growing, for example, right? Take, for example, pig weighing. There was a lot of developments over the years in weighing with cameras to varying degrees of success. But of course, those cameras could also be exploited for other indicators of relevance in terms of animal welfare and perhaps health as well. And I think now is the time to start to think about repurposing these tools, not just have a single tool, but exploit it so that it becomes of value for the main stakeholder, which I believe is the animal anyway, and give indicators relevant to health and welfare of the animal. But the problem is, if we are to do that development, that's not in the minds of a technology provider, because they can quantify a return on investment when they're estimating the growth of the animal for the farmer and so on. They can't estimate what the return on investment is when it's giving a welfare indicator. And I think that's our position as research groups, to work together with producers and technology providers as well, and to enable this kind of repurposing, not repurposing, I don't mean completely repurposed, but additional functionality of the tool, and bring that to a level where it can be acceptable to other stakeholders in the chain. And I think then the potential of doing that can be seen, but it needs additional effort, like the efforts that Matti is doing, Maciej are doing. Really, we need to provide this kind of, and we like to do it. It's not, yeah, we like to do it, but in the end, I think without that, we won't have systems that deal with welfare as well, because the business side isn't looking to that. That's
Thanks, Tomas. So maybe the last question for all of you. So now, based on your experience, how do you think that the Digital Innovation Hub can really foster, strengthen the approach of PLF? Who wants to start? Maciej?
Yes, I think that's where digital innovation hubs can play a really important role is on the educational side. So this relates also to what we are doing at the University of Veterinary Medicine. We see that, like I mentioned before, also that in the PLF field, there is really a lack of this interdisciplinary expertise to develop those systems. So educating a new generation of students that have the expertise on the animal side and simultaneously on the engineering side, on the data science side, is really central. So I would see there a bigger role for digital innovation hubs, also in education of a new generation of students.
Thanks. Tomas?
I think it's an ideal way to bring people together who would never typically get together, and to enable conversations that don't typically happen for one reason or another. And I think the main reason is the trust issue that you mentioned a little bit earlier, Maria. And I think that's a real problem. And if you can enable conversation and sharing of data in an environment where the farmer feels that they're going to dig into what I'm doing over the past while and try to reveal any problems, that's something that they don't want. They want to feel a bit trusted in a consortium, in a group, and they also want to return back. So if the Digital Innovation Hub could also say, yeah, you're in it, you're in the development, you also get this return back. Because sometimes that's not clear to the farmer. They think they give everything out, but they need some value back in their own hands. But I really believe that it's a step forward, because there isn't much initiatives, and this is a needed one.
Thanks, Tomas. Matti, shortly, maybe?
Yeah, so I agree with Tomas fully. I think trust is the key. And then you need to have the trust between the companies and the researchers to work together, and then the trust between the farmers and the researchers and companies, and even companies with each other. So I think having kind of a shared place where you can share ideas and data and innovate in a kind of a sandbox, I think it's really good and can push things forward.
Thanks. María?
I completely agree with my colleagues. I would also like to add that the digital innovation hubs also provide a place where, I don't know if you heard about test before invest. So that's where companies can actually test their solutions and see that if they will work definitely for the producers and adapt their solutions to the producers. So I think that's another very positive things of this hubs.
Like a showroom.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you all. Very interesting panel discussion. We learned a lot. Again, thanks for your participation, for your presentation. Thanks also for the organization. Just say that there is still a lot of things to do on PLF, a lot of research, a lot of issues to tackle, to challenge, to tackle as well, to develop new technologies, to validate them. And what we learned that Digital Innovation Hub can be a very interesting tool for this. So thanks a lot. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you all.
Thanks.
Very
Bye-bye.
much.
Bye. Bye-bye.